Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Chair Adventure Channel. This is a massive old-growth western red cedar in Haida Gwaii. See that hole in the bottom of the tree? That's a danger to your kids. They're going to see that, they're going to want to crawl inside, and I'm going to tell you later why you don't want that to happen. As you can see here on the right, you can see these roots on the outside of this tree, and what that is, this massive veteran, this old-growth western red cedar, has a western hemlock tree. Just as you can see, the stump is starting to grow into the tree. It's a western hemlock growing into the side of this old growth western red cedar. Very interesting. One species living off the other. Western red cedar is a very interesting species in that it can grow to be very old. This particular tree is probably in the neighborhood of around 500 to 600 years old. Massive scar running up the front of the face of that tree. Another species growing out of it because it's so rotten. There's so much biomass of large organic debris inside this tree of red rot and brown cubicle rot that this tree is actually seeing another tree as basically a food source. It's incredible how the western hemlock seems to be able to grow in these different kinds of environments. I think you see some kind of weird looking dude walk up to this western red cedar. Yes, that's me. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking to myself, do I film the inside of it? That is an extremely dangerous thing to do. So I'm just going to have a quick look inside, see whether I can do this safely. And it seems to me that somebody's actually been in there digging it out. We're not talking about a black bear. This is on the side of a trail in Haida Gwaii. So there are crews out maintaining this trail and they're looking at this tree. They're probably looking at it from a danger tree perspective because this is a very dangerous tree. You would not want to be out walking in the bush on a windy day around this tree. So the point is this. I'm just going to have a quick look underneath with a flashlight and then I'm going to bring the camera in and I'm going to show you something that you should not do yourself. What I'm about to show you is fairly dangerous, especially if it's on a windy day. You're going to have these like miniature slides on the inside of this tree as this totally decomposed material comes down, almost like an avalanche of large organic debris. This red rot that's on the inside of this tree. Remember, there's another tree growing out of this western red cedar. I'm probably looking at the roots right now. I can't really see them very well, but they're embedded in this tree. A core of rot on the inside of this tree that will extend quite a ways up. And if your if your kids were to go in there, start monkeying around, jumping up and down, you could have a little miniature avalanche that literally buries them alive on the inside of these trees. So whatever you do, and if you have kids and you see a hole like that in the bottom of a tree, do not let them go in there. They'll be inclined to do so. These are beautiful, majestic trees, but they are also very dangerous. Here we see a picture of my kids. And the little guy there with the red shirt, he's sitting on what we call kind of a class 7 pile of large organic debris. You can see the cubicle brown rot in this old stump. That is essentially what you would see, what you were looking at on the inside of that western red cedar that I crawled inside of. And here we see another, even more advanced. You can see all kinds of western red hemlocks, germinants on the outside of this pile, and the little guy's just going in there and ripping it apart. I mean, it has no strength to it whatsoever. And here we're looking at a bit of a Sitka spruce. It's a beautiful, young, vibrant tree and probably 85 to 125 years old. But yet around it you'll see other trees that have lifting crowns and they're quite sick. Leaning trees are dead. Here we have a snag, again in the same forest, the Sitka spruce. Lots of spiral green in this tree. It's full of rot. And you can see fruiting bodies growing on the outside of this thing, also known as conchs. This here is a beautiful living tree, but what you will see is you'll see the forest floor is actually growing up into the bark around the bole of this tree and extending up further up the tree into the canopy. I mean, this is essentially the kind of view that you would expect that maybe an insect would have as he's crawling up the tree. But look how far this you'll see some red stem feather moss or electrified cat's tail moss coming up this tree. the forest is growing up onto the base of these trees, up into the canopies. And here you can see a tree which is being stressed. This tree is absolutely covered in parasites. You'll see some basal swelling. There's a bit of a growth on the lower part of the stem here of this western hemlock. And if you look up, you'll see these clusters of swollen branches. This is a parasitic plant called hemlock dwarf mistletoe. You know, the kind of thing you like to get kissed under during Christmas time. It's a parasitic plant. It's got sinkers into the cambium of this tree, and it's essentially sucking the life juice out of it. Here we have what's, it's a real indicator of a tree that's really on its way out, if it's not already dead. This is Ganoderma applinatum. It is a saprophytic conch. It's not a parasite, it's saprophytic. It only feeds off dead tissue, and as you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings on this one. So this conch, this fruiting body, it's a few years old now. It's almost like you can see the layers, as if you were counting tree rings. So such is the nature of this conch, also known as artist's conch. People like to do paintings on the bottom of these things. But this tree is a snag. It's a dead tree. It's covered in this conch. If you have this fruiting body on your tree, it's honestly not that long to live. But what it is an indicator of is a tree, is a forest. From death comes life. These creatures are giving life to new and other types of organisms that are going to decay them, and then eventually life will spring from them again. As the red rot in the wood decomposes the lignum, anaerobic bacteria and other microorganisms break these majestic trees down back into earth, from which other new life will spring. And forests are just an amazing, amazing thing. I wish we knew more about them. I wish we would actually invest our time and resources in trying to understand them and educate them to our kids. Maybe one day they'd appreciate them a bit more. Rifle Chair signing off. Hope we're all doing well, and as always, Maple Leaf up.